What are we doing today? Graphing polynomial functions. Okay, we're graphing polynomials. So, example number 1. F of x equals 2x to the 4th minus 8x squared plus 5x minus 7. Here's the things you need to be able to tell me. The degree, the terms, the leading coefficient, and the end behavior. Now, you know and I know that we could just straight up grab our calculator, plug it in, look, right? But we are smarter than that, and we're going to prove it by our homework, okay? The first thing we need to be able to talk about is the degree. Any idea what the degree is of a polynomial? Have you ever heard of that before? The degree of a polynomial? Well, how about if I tell you what it is? Is that okay? The degree is the highest exponent. So the degree is the highest exponent. You guys were just talking about spelling and then I messed up a spelling word. Sorry about that. So, how are we going to figure out the degree of this polynomial function? Yeah, exactly. Look, right? Look at it. What's the highest exponent? 4. Done. Now, how do we figure out how many terms there are? Well, if there's a degree of 4, there's 3 terms. Because 3 is 1 less than 4. So that's one of the hardest things you'll have to do today in the lesson. Take the degree, subtract 1. Nice. Okay, now, this doesn't mean there's exactly 3 terms. It means 3 terms at the most. This is the maximum number of terms that there will be. Okay? Now, the leading coefficient. Is it okay if I put LC for leading coefficient? I'll put it over here. Let's put terms. Let's make sure we have some notes about terms. So the degree, can we call this n? Can we call the degree n? So then how many terms are there? N minus 1. Perfect. Okay. Now what does LC stand for? Okay, leading coefficient. What is the leading coefficient? Wait, where is the leading coefficient? At the front if what's true? If it's in standard form. What do I mean by standard form? What's true about the exponents if it's in standard form? Yeah, they're in decreasing order, right? Whatever the highest one is first, the next highest, and then next highest, and then down to the constant, right? Okay, so the leading coefficient is only the leading coefficient if the polynomial is in standard form. Otherwise, sometimes the leading coefficient might be in the middle, right? The leading coefficient is always with what? The biggest exponent. That's exactly right. Okay? Did you have a question? Okay, awesome. All right, so leading coefficient. What's the leading coefficient in this problem then? 2. Now, I agree with you that it's 2, but we're not going to write down 2 because we really don't care that it's 2. What we care is that it is positive 2. Because the leading coefficient being positive, if we have a positive leading coefficient, that tells us something about the end behavior. That tells us that it rises to the right automatically. There's no question about it. If the leading coefficient is positive, the polynomial automatically rises to the right. What do you think happens if we have a negative leading coefficient? Falls to the right. Okay? The leading coefficient tells us the right behavior. Okay, those were good guesses you had, by the way. Some of you guessed correctly, some of you the opposite of that, but I appreciate you guessing. Okay, so tell me what you know already about the end behavior because the leading coefficient is positive. It rises right. Now, we have to do a little problem solving to figure out the left behavior, but I know if it rises to the right, and I know there's a maximum of 3 turns, 1, 2, 3, what happens to the left? What's it doing? Yeah. Now, is this exactly what the graph looks like? No. But is that close enough to know what the left behavior is? Yes, absolutely. So now here's the quote-unquote interesting part. This is what you need to have on your written homework that I'll check. Yes? You've got to have the equation written. Excuse me. Yeah, the equation written. You've got to have the degree, the turns, the leading coefficient, and then behavior. And then when you go to do your homework online, you're literally just going to take your calculator with you. Pop, 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 enter. Because on the online textbook, all it wants is the graph. So do you see why we're doing all this stuff on paper? Because, we're way smarter than like just matching a equation graph to a multiple choice graph on a homework. Okay? There's more that you need to know besides just what does the graph look like. And the online textbook part only worries about what's the graph look like. So this needs to be on your paper. Does everybody understand that? Okay, so let's do another example. Yes? F of x equals negative 5 x to the 5th plus 3 x to the 4th minus 10x squared plus 2x minus 12. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in what I need to write down so I don't forget. Degree, turns, leading coefficient, end behavior. I'm sorry my E is so tall. Please forgive me. Okay, you got it written down? All right, I need a volunteer. Liz, what's the degree? Close. Try again. 5, because why? What's the degree? What's the degree? Highest exponent, right? The highest exponent is 5, so my degree is 5. Another volunteer. Mo, turns. And why is it 4? So 5 minus 1 is 4. Done. Another volunteer. Cohen, leading coefficient? Negative. Now, you and I both know that it's negative 5, but we don't really care about the 5 right now, do we? Okay. Another volunteer? Maddie, tell me what you know. Falls right. Leading coefficient is negative, so it falls right. Another volunteer. Jennifer, how do we find the left behavior? We draw a little graph, right? So if it falls right, how many turns are there, Jennifer? 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So tell me what's happening to the left. Perfect. Done. Now to answer the one in the textbook, you have to turn your calculator on, put that equation in, hit graph, and match it to the one that the matching that are there, right? Can you do that? Do I need to give you an example of that, or oh, you got that? Okay. Okay. One more. You ready? F of x equals 4x squared plus 10x minus 13x to the 4th plus 10x to the 7th plus 6. Degree, turns, leading coefficient, and behavior. Someone who hasn't spoken yet, volunteer to tell me the degree. Charlie, what you got? 7. Oh, but that's not at the beginning. 2 is at the beginning. Oh, it's the highest, not the first one, right? Okay. TJ, what you got? 6 turns. Why? Exactly. 1 less than 7. Okay. Next, somebody who hasn't talked yet. What you got, Chloe? What? Positive? And how do you know that it's positive? Circle the leading coefficient for me. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't circle the coefficient, but how about the first term? Is that okay? I know I said leading coefficient. I'm sorry. The leading coefficient would just be 10, right? Okay. But that would be the first term, correct? And it's positive. So somebody else? End behavior? What do you know? Who hasn't talked yet? Calvin, what you got? Rise is right. How do you know it rises right? Whoops. Rises right. Can you read that? Sorry. I started to write right. But that would not be right. Yeah. What about left behavior? Rises right. 6 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Left behavior? Falls left. Got it? Even if it's not in standard form, can you figure it out? Do I have to ask you to rewrite it in standard form for you to figure it out? No. Okay, good. Questions? What do you do if you have some? Perfect. You just asked me. You're great. All right, mark it, set, go.